New videos every day.
This is Dr. Vincent Bellonzi. I had a question the other day about chelation, so I thought I'd address it here on the internet. Chelation is something that is thrown around. There are some studies now showing it's got benefits for heart problems. It does have a lot of other benefits as far as getting heavy metals out. The problem with heavy metals, and these are what we call the toxic metals that we worry about, there are some metals that are actually good for us in a trace amount. But if they get built up, they can become a problem. But I'm talking about the metals that really don't have any good to play in the body. I'm talking about mercury and lead and arsenic and aluminum. There are a number of metals, about 15 of them, that if they get in the body, they interfere with proper function. That means you've got disease. That means you've got problems. They trigger the immune system. They affect nervous systems. They affect hormones. They affect tissues. They don't belong there. So we want to get them out. The body does have its own processes to get rid of these metals. You have a detoxification process, and you can excrete heavy metals. The problem is there that if you interfere with that process, you accumulate the metals. Now I've got a problem in my body. It doesn't function. So we need a tool to get the metals out. The body does this same process in its striving to get rid of the metals. But if the body can't do it, then we need a way to get the metals out. And that way is called chelation. Now, chelation is just a biochemical process. Like I said, the body can do it. And it's just a matter of attaching one molecule to another to be able to carry it around. So if I want to get a certain mineral into your body that's good for you, like magnesium or calcium or any of the other several minerals, I can't just ground up that element and give it to you. You'll absorb perhaps a trace of it, but it's in an ionic form. It's in a form that's not very well absorbed, and it's just hard to get it into the body. But if I attach a protein to that ion, if I attach a protein to the magnesium, I've chelated the magnesium, and the protein has an open door. The protein can get into the body very easily. Then the magnesium or the calcium or whatever can disassociate from the protein, and it's in the body where it can be used. So you probably have taken a multivitamin, multimineral that had chelated minerals in it that made those minerals very assimilable and bioavailable to the body. So it was just a way to get the mineral in. So I can use chelation in reverse. I can send an empty protein into the body in a sense, and I can use proteins that I know prefer to attach to the metals, and I can use a protein that I'm pretty confident I can recover most or all of it within about a 24-hour period. Now I'm doing chelation. So we get a protein into the body. Often we use a synthetic protein that is made in the lab, and we know that synthetic protein doesn't harm the body, but we do know that it all is excreted back out of the body. So I send this empty protein into your body. Sometimes we do it intravenously with an IV. Sometimes we do it with a pill. Sometimes we rub it on your skin. But we get this protein absorbed by your body or into your body, and it runs around and attaches to metal where it finds it. So I can use a particular synthetic protein that really likes lead, or I can use one that really prefers mercury and perhaps a couple of other metals. We do have some mineral loss when we use chelation, so we have to make sure that the mineral balance of the body is adequate as well, and we have to replenish minerals after doing chelation. But we can pick synthetic proteins that prefer the metals and carry them out primarily. So if I use the proper synthetic protein and I send it into your body, it picks up the metal and then you excrete it. It means I send it into your body and it carries the metal back out. We can actually test this and we can see that we bring the metals out of the body. And that's all chelation really is. It's just a matter of going in and removing metals. Now, we use that in a lot of ways to help the body be healthier. The cleaner your body is, the better it functions. And that especially applies to the heavy metals. And probably more appropriately than anything to mercury, lead, and aluminum, although there are other metals as well that can interfere. But those three metals cause a lot of the problems that we look at. Many researchers believe that MS is a result of mercury because it can demyelinate nerves and give you the same symptoms that we call MS. So if you have mercury in your body, which you probably do have at least a trace, especially if you're having symptoms, if we remove the mercury, we'll often see quite a difference in the symptoms. They may even go away because the inflammatory system has not been triggered. We don't have the same damage occurring to the nervous system, and it can make a huge difference. The mercury can severely affect the function of the thyroid gland. So many times as we take mercury out, people that were hypothyroid start not needing any more hormone because their thyroid comes back to functioning well. So the metals can interfere. If we get them out, the interference is gone and the body begins to function better. So chelation is nothing but using that process to our advantage. Now, a lot of chelation is done to help with circulation, with cardiovascular disease. We used to believe that the chelator went in and pulled the calcium deposits away. We now know that that mechanism, although it may occur on a small scale, is probably not the big advantage that chelation has for cardiovascular disease. Now, with the discovery of nitrous oxide and some other elements, and the interaction that we see with metals, it's been theorized recently that what happens is that you reduce the amount of spasm and dysfunction of the blood vessels. So it's probably a little bit of both. We probably do pick up and open a little bit of the occlusion, but I think what happens more so is that we stop the vessel from spasming, meaning that it won't close down because it tightens up. Often a heart attack or a stroke or other problems occur because not necessarily because there's a blockage, but because just like if you squeeze down on a hose, the spasm of the blood vessel causes a short duration stop in the blood flow. So now we have a problem. We've stopped blood flow. We're going to have a heart attack. We're going to have other problems. If we can stop that spasm from happening, we're going to have less of an incidence of that. So we probably do open the blockage a little bit strictly by the chelation. We stop it from spasming, and it does improve the cardiovascular risk. So that's where chelation is often looked at. Probably another thing that happens, which has also been studied, is that as we pull the metal out, there's less inflammation. Now we know that the biggest cause of cardiovascular disease is inflammation. It's not just too much cholesterol running around in the vessel. It's the fact that the cholesterol, especially if it's oxidized, can damage or be dangerous to the vascular lining, to the actual blood vessel. And then a plaque occurs because of the damage, and inflammation is a whole part of that. If I can reduce inflammation, that whole procedure or scenario won't happen as quickly or as severely. So there are some effects and different theories on how it works. It's probably a little bit of everything, but chelation does improve heart disease. It does improve the disease in the blood vessels. It does reduce the incidence of stroke, and it's because of all these factors that I'm talking about. So again, chelation is nothing that's out there that's a theory that doesn't work or something that's unknown. Chelation is used every day, and as I mentioned, you probably take chelated minerals as a supplement if you take supplements. So chelation is a natural biochemical process. It's just a mechanism that we have, something that we can use that I feel is pretty safe. We do chelation in the office in many forms. Again, it can be done orally or it can be done by IV. We're just trying to introduce that protein into the body so that it can round up the metals and carry them out. So nothing that should be worried about. I think it's a very safe procedure. We've had really very little problem with it. The only thing, like I said, that we have to watch is that we don't pull out too many of the minerals, but those can be replaced pretty easily if you just keep an eye on it. So a pretty safe procedure, something that we do utilize. And the one thing that we have to remember is that we can get in and handle nutrition and maybe even use some drug therapy or do many things. But until you get the metals out, you're probably not going to see a resolution of a problem. Again, there's many things that can get in there and affect the immune system. There are viruses, there are bacteria, there are parasites, there are a lot of chemicals that get into the body and stay there, and then there are the metals. If you've accumulated too much of these things, including your own physiological waste products, you're going to be sick. Your body reaches a certain point where the burden is too much and you have symptoms. So we want to do everything we can to remove those substances so they don't cause interference and don't make the problem worse, or perhaps even be the creator of the problem. So I hope that answers your question. I did have a few people asking and requesting that, so just wanted to talk a little bit about chelation. An excellent tool. I think everybody should be assessed. There's many ways to assess to see if you have metals. It's not at all unusual to find metals. In fact, it's probably very hard to find somebody who's completely clean of metals. And even a little bit of metal can be a real problem. So there's a lot of good ways to assess that. You can simply do a hair test. It's probably one of the things that hair is accurate for, are the levels of minerals and metals. You can do a urine test. You can test feces. You could even probably, if you can find a way to collect sweat and test that. You could test nails, anything you excrete. You're just looking for the amount of metals that are coming out. The only caveat to that is that many people that are sensitive to metals are the ones that can't get rid of them very well. And just touch on autism real quickly. It's something that we've done a lot of work with. In the autistic children, we find that they're non-excretors. And what that means is that the kids have a lot of metal in them, even though we can test them. Unless we put a chelator into this system, we won't even see any metals. It's interesting that you'll test these kids, think that they're actually clean of metals, and then we'll do just a test of chelation, basically often have them take a pill of one of these proteins, and we'll find that the protein's pulling out a great amount of especially mercury, lead, or sometimes aluminum. And it's just a matter that they weren't able to get rid of that on their own. So if you test yourself and you find a lot of metals coming out, you probably have quite a load inside. So that's what chelation is. Nothing real mysterious about it. It can be a very effective therapy. Again, this is Dr. Vince Bellonzi. It's been a pleasure talking with you.